Good evening. Good evening. Hope everyone is doing well tonight. Welcome to the third CFF Live session hosted by the Cloud Family Foundation. The Cloud Family Foundation is an organization dedicated to the growth and development of our collegiate and grade school kids. This is done through both our grant and scholarship programs. In 2021, the Cloud Family Foundation achieved three $1,000 scholarships to undergraduate students, Tuskegee, UCF, and Southern University, a $300 grant to a Florida elementary school teacher, and $200 in HBCU paraphernalia to a Maryland elementary school principal. All proceeds from this session will go directly to the Cloud Family Foundation's laptop program. And in 2022, we have a goal of donating 10 laptops to the classroom. You can go ahead and donate by selecting the link that I will be providing in the chat right now. And so tonight's session is going to feature Dr. Charles Johnson-Bey, Senior Vice President of Booz Allen Hamilton. As always, we look forward to any questions you have, and you can drop them in the chat feature. If you missed any of our previous CFF Live sessions, you can access them at the cff-inc.org website.
Here we go.
Please help me welcome Dr. Charles Johnson-Bey. Hey, CJB, you there?
I am, Justin. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. How's everything going?
Things are going well. Things are going well. I certainly want to commend you for what you're doing on your foundation. Just helping people. I mean, that's what you do. I mean, that's what you've been doing since I've known you now for years. And so I just commend you and your family for doing the great things that you do.
I appreciate that. And the interesting thing about it is, it came from a necessity, right? And I don't want to go too much into that, but, I lost one of my best friends from pancreatic cancer in 2018. That's what really kind of sparked it. Then I lost my aunt in the early part of this year in January. So the two things that we started doing the naming them after was both my friend Robert Jones. He passed from pancreatic, and then my aunt who passed in January, and she was an elementary school teacher. So that's what really kind of sparked the need to do this and want to give back. But yeah, no, it's we've done really, really well giving out the 3 scholarships, and we're looking forward to being able to do more in 2022. So, I'm glad you're able to come join us. We've had a couple other guest speakers in the past, and I'm sure you're well aware of who those individuals are. So I look forward to a spirited discussion between the two of us, and hopefully people can get a good word from this. But I'm really looking forward to this tonight.
Yeah, I am too. I've been very excited to let friends know about this, and so I think we've got some few friends that are on tonight that have been friends with us for a long time, and also just support the cause. And digital divide is a very important topic, and technology is it's what we do, right? And so it's certainly happy to sit with you and talk about this and just sort of vibe with you. And I certainly welcome, as you said, for people to ask their questions. Don't wait till the end. Put your questions in there now. Let's just sort of get things going. So anyway, Justin, I'm ready to get started.
And so if you don't mind giving us a little bit of your background. I know you and I, it's when we talked yesterday, and it's like, when did we meet? Right. So I'm trying to figure out, how far we go back, so you can talk a little bit about your background, maybe even stuff that I'm not as aware of. But, if you can give us a little bit of your background and some of the things that you've been involved in.
Sure thing. So let's see. So I'll start with just the fact that, so I'm from East Baltimore. I grew up Baltimore City Public School System. Very proud of that. I went to Baltimore Polytechnic, which is an engineering high school in Baltimore City. I also went to Johns Hopkins for electrical computer engineering. I played football there, so I might have a couple of football buddies on the line today. And I guess the thing, I'll finish this out. And then I also, after Hopkins, I went to the University of Delaware, where I received a master's and PhD in electrical and computer engineering. So I'm certainly a I call myself a geek because I'm certainly nerdy, but I have, a personality and can get along with people. So I think that puts me in the geek side of things. But certainly that's the stuff I like to do. Is I'm certainly into math, science, and always have been. I got my big sister to thank for that. I've said a lot of times my sister helped me learn math, and I followed her to Poly, which was an engineering high school, and she said, "Look, you're going to know all this stuff because you're not going to embarrass me." She was the older sister, and I was the younger brother, so she got me going. And I'll say just from early on and growing up in the city, just understanding just the how all the schools did not have all the same things, right? We didn't have all the same books, all of that stuff. So just working through that was is part of my background. And then also once I finished, just to get to my professional career, I worked at Motorola, corporate research and development in Chicago. Just before that, I married the girl next door. We're actually going to hit 30 years of marriage in June of 2022. So, we're rounding the corner of 30 years of marriage there. And but worked for Motorola doing R&D, image processing, stuff like that. I also worked for Corning doing communications, hardware, and then I was a professor at Morgan State University. So just loved that in electrical computer engineering. Helped start the graduate program in their computer engineering department. Have a few, master's and doctorate students from there, and then I came to work. Right, I went to work at Lockheed Martin. That's where we met, and doing a lot of open innovation, funding activities at the national laboratories, and bringing those and transition that technology into Lockheed Martin. So that was fun. Worked with Microsoft, GE Global Research, Sandia, Oak Ridge National Lab, did all that stuff. Just had a fun time. And then probably about a year and a half ago, I came to Booz Allen, which is I love. And Booz Allen, I came to Booz Allen where I'm working in the developing technologies in the electromagnetic spectrum. So things that, just light waves, microwaves, all of that, how your cell phone works, everything. Light that we see, we can't see. So it's just fun. So I'm certainly digging on life and have been, in technology and innovation for pretty much all my life since high school, really.
So I failed to tell you, and I gotta apologize because you're gonna like, how did you not tell me this one yesterday? So my eldest brother works for Booz, right? And I'm kind of like, how did I not tell him this yesterday that my brother works for Booz? Yes, he's out in Nebraska. So yeah, no, after he left
Okay.
the Marines, he walked out and then went straight to Booz as a civilian. So yep, don't write that down and be like
That's
he
too late.
didn't,
Too late.
because I think that's what's happening. Don't be like, yeah, your brother didn't tell me up until when we started having my conversation. So, but yeah, no, he's out in Nebraska and he's been out there for. He's been out there for a while, but he retired from the Marines. I think he retired from the Marine Corps maybe 3-4 years ago. So, and then he's been out in Nebraska doing that. So I gotta give a shout out to my big bro.
All right, man. Well, I'm gonna check him out. I'm sure he's good people. So
I kind of figured that was going to happen now.
Yep.
So let's get right into it, right? And we want to talk about the digital divide. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is just because one, just the acknowledgement of that it exists, and who does it impact, right? And I think that's kind of the discussion here, because when we talk about the digital divide, a lot of people think that since technology is there, there's not really such a thing. So let's talk about that and kind of kick it off. And what are your thoughts? What is the digital divide, and who really is impacted by it?
So great question. And the digital divide. So I think the most simple definition that you can find really talks about folks that have access to technology, like the internet, like computers, like laptops, things like that. Who has access and who doesn't? And that's the divide in a nutshell. And it's probably the bigger definition or the bigger impact to people is, what does that mean not to have it, right? So what
Right.
does it mean if I don't have access to the internet? What does it mean if I don't have a laptop that I can utilize or have that? And quite frankly, also it's more than one, right? Because it's more than one divide. So just to give a another sort of, not another definition, but let's go down another level with respect to digital divide. It could be that, I might have a laptop, right? I might have something, but where I am, I don't have the connection. I don't have, a connection to the internet to get to where I want to get to, or it's so slow that it doesn't help me, or I just have one, right? And I've got a whole family that needs to share it. So part of it is just, do I have connection? Can I get to the internet in itself? Two, do I have the hardware and the things that I need to make it useful? And then I will also say, just to go another level on this, and we found this out, with COVID, is the curricula there? Is the pedagogy there so that I can learn from home? Is it things that can help me learn from it? And how do I do that? And so I think really the thing that COVID did, and being home and the shutting down of schools and all that, really did bring light to how serious a problem uh, that it is. And then just to also just hit from the internet connection standpoint, sort of how do I do it? It's a cost to that service, like $10 to $40 a month for a modem, and you might need a router that's going to cost you $10 a month. Then you've got an installation fee that could run you up to $100, and that's just for
Right.
the fixed internet connection. So if I don't have that, then what if a hotspot, right? Can I have a hotspot? But even that's a $15 to $40 charge a month, and then the device itself could cost you anywhere from $60 to $80. So things aren't cheap. And so how do you get connected? And do I have the devices? Just to just put a cap on this thing brings it down to the simple definition of what that divide is and what impact it has on the people that don't have access.
And I think I'm glad you pointed out not just the hardware, but the way to connect, right? We tend to think of things in almost in a vacuum. I've got a laptop, I got a cell phone, but there is a cost associated with the connection piece, right? And that's why part of the discussion when we wanted to bring laptops to schools was there may be a better opportunity to have them connected in a network there than in some instances where parents may not still have the connection to be able to make best use of the laptop, right? So that was why we were focusing more on trying to impact the school itself as opposed to the individual person. And so that I'm glad you kind of call that out and separate because of the differences between the technology or the hardware and the way it's connected.
And you know what else, Justin? Here's another piece that people don't think about, just to further elucidate how involved this issue is. We've heard about ransomware and things like that, where people are, sort of hijacking the systems and saying, okay, pay me and I will let it go. What
Right.
about the identity, right? What about the
Mhm.
personal identities and personal identifiable information that are here now that, if people are doing things at home or not in within the school or someplace like that? How is all of that being protected, right? What are the guidelines for that? What's the governance for that? How do you evaluate that? And you can't just put it on the teachers, right? I mean, Lord, God bless the teachers. They do enough work already. But how do you deal with all of the security and privacy and all that? So again, when you talk about the digital divide, it's a much more complex problem than just, do you have a laptop or not?
No, and I'm glad you kind of clarify that a little bit more. Again, when we look at it, at first people, I don't know that everybody looks at it that exists, but I'm glad you kind of segregate the different areas of the divide itself. And one of the things that kind of struck me was that there were different types of the digital divide, right? It wasn't just one specific group that was impacted. Can you touch a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's certainly not just it's certainly multiple types and and really let me talk about this for a second. So to answer your question, if you really want to have, so I'm going to talk about this with in the context of learning, right? And so you need about four real things in place to have a really good learning experience for the students and the teachers. One, as we talked about just earlier, you need that high speed internet service. So you need that. You need internet enabled learning devices, like which we talked about. And I'm going to exclude cell phones in that because it's very, I don't know how hard, like we all have cell phones, but it is really hard to just, that's not a, I'm going to call that a learning tool. There's certainly a lot of things that you can do, but you need a learning device with a lot more stuff on it than and make it a little more easier than just your cell phone. So you need that. You also need the instructional content, as I talked about, and you need the support, right? That digital literacy. How do you do things again? Because if you have all those things, but how do you use it? Do you have the right? Do you know how to use it? Do you know all the tools? Do the teachers know the tools? Do they have the tools that they need? Do they know them? Do the parents know? Do the students know? And so I think this crosses many boundaries to get to the point of your question. So, yep, and I can certainly give some numbers that breaks things down from an economic standpoint. But I think it's broader than just the economic standpoint because I can have the money for all these things. And that's why I named those four things, because if I don't have the literacy, and if I just, as a parent, I say, okay, to my kids or something like that, okay, you go off and figure it out. You know more about it than I do. And even though that might be true, the students may not know enough to help themselves. So I think it crosses economic boundaries. It certainly, as we talked about some of the costs earlier, if you don't have the funds and the means to pay for those things, that is a pretty tough thing to overcome as well. So it crosses all boundaries, and I think that what we want the folks listening today is to understand that it's not just a those people problem. It's a U.S. problem. It's our problem, and it's our problem to solve.
Yeah, I remember when we were talking about yesterday, you want to be able to bring all the kids up to the playground because that's the level of individuals that we need, in industry, right? And so I love the analogy there of bringing them all off the playground and being able to arm them with the technology.
Yeah, and then thanks for bringing that because that's actually something I really like to say all the time because you know if you believe all what you see on TV and in these shows, you tend to think that the smart people all look one way or come from a certain school, and the people who aren't smart or capable look one way or come from a different school or live from a different area or in a different area code or things like that. But the fact of the matter is, from the United States standpoint, we need all the kids in all the playgrounds because the United States is behind in a number of areas in technology. And, when we look at ourselves and the rest of the world, so we have catching up to do ourselves, and we need everybody. And the thing also, when I talk about clearances and having clearances, and so when we have the more people that we have, because a lot of work that you do, like I talked about, work in the electromagnetic spectrum, a lot of work in engineering, if you work in defense and things like that, you're going to need some level of clearance to be able to participate. And those go to U.S. citizens. And so we need everybody because we don't have enough clear people today. I always say if you have a clearance, you have that. People with a clearance have 0% unemployment, right? And I always make the joke that it's even negative because I'm sure some people who are no longer with us that are still getting paid because they have a clearance. So those are things, honestly, I think we need everybody to help the U.S. get better.
And I like the talk about getting better, but when we talked yesterday, it was about not just catching up, right? That's still being a step behind, right?
That's
But
right.
really accelerating where we are going and understanding what that strategy is. So catching up, that's really not catching up anymore.
Yeah, if we're constantly chasing behind. It's like, okay, they got this. I'm like, okay, we got to do something a little different, right? And I, I talked about it like this hypotenuse, right? Where's the shortcut? Where's the place that we can cut to go to? Or if, using a hockey analogy, how do we skate to where the puck is going to be? We know where the puck is now. How do we get to where it's going to be so that we can help the country get better, so that we can help ourselves get better? And I think that's where that's actually where innovation comes in. And really, this is what I want to spend most of our time talking about, because to be innovative, you need constraints, right? If we had all the money that we needed, if we had all the bandwidth, if we had all the laptops and all of that stuff, okay, how innovative do we need to be? We got the stuff that we need, now we use them. But the fact is, how do we still learn, right? We went, millennia without having computers and the internet, and people were still learning, and civilizations were growing. So it's obvious that we don't need the internet to grow and to become better as people. So I think we get to get back to, how do we communicate with each other? How do we share our ideas? And how do we be vulnerable, right? I mean, how do I say, you know what, Justin, I don't know this as well. Can you help me with it, right? And whether I have a laptop or connection to the internet or anything like that, I don't need that to share with you sort of my ideas and then get some help from you on how to make it better. And I think those are the things that ultimately, it's going to help us get to where we need to be, help the communities get to where they need to be. It's that sharing of ideas and communications, and we all have them, right? We just need to be able to share them and to look deep within ourselves and say, you know what, I need to reach out and ask for help. So
well, the only thing about that is I was going to touch on the point of the sharing of the data, right? We had that conversation, right? It can't just be, I have the data, I'm trying to keep it to myself to kind of help it grow, right? You can't. Real growth and real organic growth doesn't happen when you're keeping the data to yourself. And I remember we kind of talked about that yesterday, and I was hoping to pull a little bit of that thread, right? Being able, how do people share that data that it really blossoms into newer, technology. And I know we talked about it yesterday, so I thought I'd pull that thread a little bit. Yeah, I know.
This is beautiful. Yeah, because it's funny because you mentioned so Justin. So for the folks listening, Justin and I just we had a pre-call yesterday just to check through the technology, make sure everything was cool, and then we just ended up vibing, right? Just sort of rapping and talking about all this. So that's when he started about yesterday. So you guys didn't miss anything. That was just supposed to be a mic check, and we just got to rapping about all this. But honestly, I think that I think an example I like to give is, how can you tell the difference between a really good idea that I don't share and not having any idea at all, right? I can't tell the difference. It's no difference. If I got a really great idea and I don't share it, what's the difference between that and having no idea? But I tend to think, when I talk to people, and as I said, I used to be a professor at Morgan State University, and every time I ask questions, and I would ask a person a direct question, which was funny. I said, if you make eye contact, I want to call on you. So I had some people not trying to make eye contact, so I would just call their names anyway, right? Yeah, look around, I can't see. For the fortunate ones, I would call on them and just ask them what they thought. And I was always surprised that people had thoughts about what we were talking about, thoughts that were going on in the world. And you know me, I'm sort of unconventional. So we would talk about what's going on in the world. Let's talk about that, right? Let's forget digital design for a second, forget signal processing for a second, forget circuits for a second. What's going on in the world that facilitates the need for us to do this, right? Why is this important? Why are we here studying this? Why is this? And so we would talk about current events, both in politics and education and things like that. And once you get people to start sharing and opening up, you'd be surprised. I was always surprised about the what came out, what people thought about, right? What were some of the common things that people thought about? And then that is the beginning of teamwork, right? And say, okay, so these got some there are some problems that are in need of some solutions. So let's put our heads together. We don't have all the money that we need. We don't have all the space and size and power. It can't be as heavy as it wants to be. It's got to be a certain size a lot of times. So we got to now be innovative in our thinking and how to do that. And so in team projects, things like that, that's how that came about. That's what I would do, is just sort of talk to folks and have them talk, have other students talk to each other and share. And part of it, and I said vulnerability earlier, I think part of it is, you know, a lot of times you may grow up in a household where that's not what you do, right? You don't show your weakness. You don't show your vulnerability. You don't share that part of you. Um, and I think that what we need to, I just frankly, plain words, we need to do that. And the other thing I learned also was that you can give the same problem and talk about it to 36 different people. So if I'm a teacher, I got 36 kids in the classroom, I give them the same instructions, all this. When I get the projects back, I got 30 different projects coming because people have their own ideas around the same thing. And then when you pull them together and start sharing these things, then you get something that's more beautiful than if you just left that idea by itself. And so again, and I talked about, you know, civilizations growing over millennia. That's how it happened. And there's no reason why it should not continue today. So again, digital divide or not, I think that being able to share ideas with each other, being able to communicate, being able to discuss what's going on in the world, you know, and sometimes some things are taboo to talk about, or sometimes people feel like, oh, it's taboo to talk about. Well, I can't talk about this at work, can't talk about that at work. And maybe you can, maybe you can't. But if you're trying to solve a problem, or if there's a big problem out there, you got to share it. And if you got an idea, that's the start of it. A lot of times, that's the spark. And so for the folks who aren't students that are out working today, how many times have you sat in a meeting and you had an idea and didn't say anything, and then someone else mentioned exactly what you were thinking? It's like, dang, I should have said that because it was right in my mind and all that. It's the same thing. So we all, you know, we can learn it when we're younger, or we can learn it when we're older. But we got to learn that this is how you grow. You grow by sharing. You grow by sharing your ideas. You close gaps between people. You close gaps in technologies. You close gaps by sharing, right? And discussing and getting up on a whiteboard and sort of penciling it out and knowing that. And even, you know, I have a PhD. I know I don't know everything, right? So look, I don't know everything. This is what I know. What do you have, right? And we come together and solve problems. And you know, Justin, we've worked in teams and groups, and that's when you're solving the hardest problems that are in the world. That's how you get them solved, by working together. And I think that that's a gap that we can close quickly.
And you know, it's funny you mentioned that we work together, right? I mean, you know, we had a brief conversation yesterday about, you know, how, you know, what that would look like just in general, right? Us as both being in industry, you know, seeing an opportunity, right, and just having a quick brief conversation. And the one thing I think of is that we've all kind of had some grassroots starting in the same place, and we've all fanned out a little bit, but we're all still, hey, you know, I got this idea. We're doing X, Y, and Z over here. I know you're doing this, that, and the third. Is there some way we can partner? And, you know, those discussions happen now. I mean, you know, it's funny because being at L3 Harris, some of the people that were my mentees at Lockheed then became my customer at L3 Harris, and you know, they're in my office and everything else. So the dynamics and the fact that we are spreading out only lends to more communication kind of across the board. So yeah, no, one of my former mentees became my customer, and I was like, can you get out my office, please? You know, I got work to do. But I don't think he's listening tonight, but I had to routinely keep kicking him out my office. I was like, you cannot be in this meeting, bro. Get out.
Yeah, but even this, like, let's take this as a case in point, right? Where, your family has come together and started this foundation, and you're like, okay, there's certain things that are important to the world that need to be discussed, and I want to discuss them. And not only do I want to discuss them, but I want to help alleviate where I can. And so in this particular, our talk today, we're talking about the digital divide. And you were like, all right, CJB, can we get together and talk about this, right? You tell me how long it took for me to give you an answer to that. I was like, yeah, man, when you need me, give me a date.
I mean, quite literally, you were like, yeah, I'm on it. I was like, okay, I wasn't expecting that quick, but yeah, you were
right?
like, I'm on it.
Right. And that's how it is. I mean, once you share and you get some work done, and it's like, all right, man, we can get some work done. This is good. This is a good cause. This is, it's a problem. And we are trying to look for solutions and come up with solutions to get it done. Because, again, I will say, money aside, nobody has all the money that they need to do all the things that they want. So we got to get innovative on how to make this happen. And that's what you're doing. And again, I think the big way to make all this happen is to share our ideas, work together, communicate, be okay with being vulnerable, be okay with not being okay, right? And just share and talk this out. And I think that's a gap that we can address and that we can close, and everything else will follow.
I got you. And yeah, no, I think when we just talk about the communication in general, and I think that's always something that always can be worked on, right? Just in general, that's something that, sometimes you may feel like putting the idea out there, you won't be able to get the credit or what have you, but I've never seen, to your point, ideas really blossom. And, my brother, who is, board of directors, my cousin, kind of sat around, and talked about this. And they're like, yeah, we're in. We want to do this, right? We want to help leave our legacy too. And so it was almost a no-brainer, because I still had to do some convincing on how this was going to work. But it was like, hey, just tell us what the expectation is, tell us what the goals are, and then we can kind of figure out how we want to do this together. But yeah, no, I totally agree. Really fostering ideas, the only way to do that is to at least bring them to the surface.
Yep. Talk about them, address them. And it's no magic dust, right? It's people doing the work, right? It's not like we come together and then all of a sudden, we got like Hogwarts or something, right? It doesn't work like that. It's people coming together and doing the work, sharing their ideas and working through it. And, we're in industries and work for companies that are solving national and global issues, national and global problems. If those were easy, they wouldn't reach us, right? All the easy problems are done, right? They don't reach us. By the time they get to us, they're pretty tough and hard problems in our team. So time and time again, how you get it there is just working together, sharing ideas, and then, quite frankly, even in this COVID space, where it really put a mirror to the society in a number of ways. But one of the things I think that it showed as well is just how much we do need each other in that sort of that camaraderie, that face to face. The cameras and all this stuff is good, but being able to sit down in a room together in front of a whiteboard and hash some things out, you get a lot more done that way. And I think that we've learned that about ourselves. I think that's why a lot of people now just want to get out and be around people, right? So I think we need that.
And the interesting thing about it, I'll kind of transition. Should there even be a digital divide then? Should with the technology that's available, should there even be a digital divide?
Man, that is a good question. I think we talked about what the digital divide was, and I think the deeper question is the impact, right, that it has on the people. And I think that there shouldn't be, right? The honest answer is there shouldn't be. And I think that sometimes people think just because I don't have this or that I can't. So I don't have this, I don't have that, so I can't. Dot, 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 whatever that is. And I'm here to tell you that that's not true, right? Because you never have all what you need, or very rarely do you have all what you need. A lot of times it's about, okay, I can make this work, I can make that work. That's where innovation comes in. That's why people write books on that, because you have constraints and you deal with that. So I think digital divide is just another constraint that we work through, that we identify and we work through. And for some folks, where they need, like you're providing laptops through, folks that donate, or you're donating laptops to school systems to help them. That's one solution, right? That's part of the solution. I think the another part of the solution is what's being taught, right? How are we teaching? How is it done? What kind of things can we do at home? I know when I used to run a camp. I used to run a camp for kids from, I think about 5 years old to 10 years old. And I remember telling the parents that I was going to have them do 100 math problems a day. And they would look at me and be like, yeah, right. Okay. No nap, 100 problems a day and all this. But I tell you what, they all did those problems, right? And they learned a lot and they learned how to do it. So I think, and that was that. So talk about technology. That was just, that was this and some paper, right? We had this and paper. And if you don't have that, it's plenty. I remember, I know my sister's on and listening. We used to do things on the sidewalk. If you didn't have chalk, then you could use a rock and scrape it in the sidewalk. And I know we're not the only ones that would do that. So I think honestly, it's things that you can do. That's when you talk about innovation. How you're going to do something, right? Let's do some math problems. Let's do some hopscotch and some math problems. And how you going to play
back there with those rocks?
Yeah, man. How you going to play jacks if you don't know how to count, right?
Yeah, I understand. And the best one was you find somebody who had the white rocks that was under, those are the best ones, because those you get at least some chalk line on it. I'm like, man, you just took me back to that one. My neighbor, she's got those white rocks, but I'm usually just making sure they don't get in my lawnmower these days, right?
Right? But hey, you didn't have chalk. You didn't have a blackboard at home, but you had the white rock in the sidewalk, and you did what you had to do, right?
You were right. You were. I like I said, you took me back. I hadn't thought about that. And Joshua, who's on the call, he said, "Forget playing cards. They had flashcards." And you're right. Right. My mother brought those flashcards out all the time. Right. The multiplication ones. So I definitely remember those. Thank you, Josh, for that one. So, we talked a little bit about the just overall the digital divide, and I want to kind of segue a little bit, right? Because you sit on as a member of the executive committee for IRVA, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Yeah,
but what is it? Okay, what is it? And what are some of the objectives, and not only just of the organization, but as you as one of the executive committee members?
All right. So thanks for asking about that. So, and I put it's on our private chat if you could share that, but irvacommunity.org. So let me talk about that real quick. So the National Science Foundation put out a request for proposal for the Engineering Research Visioning Alliance, the Engineering Research Visioning Alliance, or IRVA, as we affectionately call it. And the responsibility for IRVA is to help set the vision for what the United States should research in engineering for 5 years, but dare I say the next 10 years plus. So I'm one. So we have one principal investigator and 4 co-PIs. So it's 5 of us who submitted, and a host of other folks who helped support. But we were the PI and the co-PIs, and so we submitted to that. We won and got awarded in April of this year. And so in order to set that engineering vision, we feel as though we need everybody. We need everybody's support. We need everybody's ideas. And so we are gathering. So it's a way that so everybody that's listening to this call can participate in that. If they go to irvacommunity.org, oh, good. Thanks. You got that up in the link. If you go there and you can be an IRVA champion, and being an IRVA champion, what that means is that you will get emails, you will understand sort of what things that we're looking at, what things that are on the minds of people like you. You'll get caught up with what's happening. We want everybody on the ride because, again, we need everybody to help get this. When I talked about the United States earlier, where the United States is, I mean that, right? You can Google that, like, is the United States where it needs to be with respect to technology, things like that. You're going to find a lot of things that says that we're falling back, we're falling behind, we're losing our edge, we're losing our dominance. And so the group that I'm involved in right now, of IRVA, we're looking to help set that. And we've got, we have standing committees, advisory boards, number of folks that from all over, not just people from STEM fields, but other people as well, because it's, policy. It's a whole lot of things that get involved in when you start talking about what engineering research that the United States needs to do. So that's what we're doing. It's a great group of people. And you can when you get on the website, you can see who's on the executive committee, who's participating. But we have a great engine, and the thing that we're moving towards right now is we're going to have 2 visioning exercises, one that's going to start in November virtually, and then another one in the spring, just to sort of get the ideas rolling. And then we're going to crunch through and see. And we have a lot of partners, so we have access to a lot of data to help us see sort of what's hot today, what are some of the hot problems, who are the people that are working on it, where are they being published, where are things being developed in industry, but sort of how all these things interconnect. So we have a lot of tools and a lot of partners, a lot of people to help, and it's just a fantastic organization to be a part of. I will say we met as a team. So talk about virtual stuff. We met and worked, I will say, over a year before, submitting to NSF. We were meeting almost every day, certainly every week, getting prepared. And we've been doing that. And I will say that the 5 of us, the PI and the 4 co-PIs, none of us have been in the same room yet. So we've been taking advantage of, just the tools like we have today. And to bring this full circle, if we all didn't have that, that would have hurt us as a team from being successful. So that's a real, thing that happens when you don't have all of the tools and such that you need, let alone know how to use them. But I will say that the IRVA community is something, when you talk about the digital divide, I think in that, where I'm saying is, if you can get to that website and sign up, you will get information and you can be able to submit information, say, hey, I think this is a good idea. Some of the ideas that we've gotten so far really, believe it or not, a lot of the things that we talked about has to deal with climate change and how that affects the earth and the environment and what that means,
I'm guessing you're getting a lot of those discussions now.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of that. So that it's real, and people are concerned about it. And then what do we do? How do we protect the environment? How do we utilize the resources that we have? Because we only have one Earth, and this is it. And so we got to take care of it. And so how best do we do that?
And so people can just go on and submit questions or ideas or sign up for it. Is that what you're? Okay.
Yep. If they go to IRVA, so I would recommend everybody going to irvacommunity.org, sign up to be a champion if you care to. That will help you get information and also connect you in, and you can let us know what's on your mind. Also, if you're a teacher, it'll be resources, things like that you can use for your classrooms or anybody. So I think IRVA is a good thing to put on there. You can always reach out to me via that website if you have questions and all that. So my goal is to make sure everybody knows that IRVA exists. This is the first Visioning Alliance of its type in history. So I'm excited to be a part of it, and it's some really great people that I work with to help make this happen.
Gotcha. So I'll take a quick pause, right? Because I know we've had a lot of questions, kind of discussion here. We've had people jump in and out of the call. I've got a couple people who are texting me, and so I'm guessing there. So I'll pause here. I see if there's a couple of questions that people might have directly from the audience. If not, we can kind of go back into vibing like we were doing before. But it's funny. So I don't know if Relly is still on the call, but Relly is Worrell Valentine's son, who worked in EIS. So he always comes on. He worked for me at L3 Harris, and yes, the running joke was, your dad's a senior manager, but you came to work for me, right? So, so I always give Worrell some grief about, we have your son. So if there are any questions on there, like I said, I'll give it. He's saying he's still there. Hey, Relly, how you doing? But I'll pause to see if there are any questions from the audience. If not, we can kind of go back in some of the discussion that we had prior. But if you have any questions, go ahead, put them in the chat right now. While people are thinking about those things, I'll ask you another question, and while people have more time to think about that. So we talk about the digital divide overall, right? Are we on the right trajectory to close that? Are we on that? And if so, if not, I'll even go that way. What are some of the things that we can really do in industry, right, to help close that gap?
Yeah, so I think we are on track. And I think you put up here one link early on, which was commonsensemedia.org. I think that's a good place to go. I am not affiliated with them, but I think that's a great place to go because they have some really good information for folks to follow up. And some of the data that I quoted earlier, I got from their site. So please go there and visit. They have a number of reports that are helpful. And there's another place. I'm going to find it in a second. Let me answer. But there's another place also that I'll put in the link, or Justin, I'll have you put in the link.
Is that the Beanstack one?
Yep. If you can put that one up. So the Beanstack one, if you go on there, you can actually find out what's going on in your particular state. So I think that's also helpful information for people to know. So if you go to the Beanstack link that you just put up, Justin, people can find out some information, also find out what's going on in their particular state and others. And if you go to the commonsensemedia.org website, you'll find a number of reports there. So I wanted people to know that I wasn't just talking off the top of my head, but I wanted to give some resources for people who wanted to follow up in the digital design and what that is and what's going on. So now to answer your question directly, yes, I do believe it's closing, and it had to, right? It did not have to, but what I would say was a catalyst was the fact, with COVID and everybody going home, and then it was like, oh man, we don't have all the tools that we need to get there. And so, it was a lot of work getting into making sure that as many students as possible had some kind of access. But even with that, there were about 50 million students across the United States that still did not have adequate access. 50 million students, that's a lot of people. And so we still have a ways to go. And that is not to say that all the other students, they had it, that everything was beautiful, right? So I certainly don't want to say that. So we certainly have a lot of work to do. But again, I'm going to drive home, technology aside, it's the communication that's going to make the difference. It's the communication that we have with each other. It's the sharing of ideas that we have with each other that's really going to make the difference going forward. But I do believe that we are making progress. But we also have another issue that popped up as well, that COVID brought a mirror to, was that supply chain, right? So, if you go to your favorite spot and they don't have what you want, and you're like, well, this hasn't been delivered, it's this, that, and the other. That supply chain also affects the digital divide. So whether you're trying to, your car, certain chips you can't get, or you want to get a laptop to hit this directly, it's going to take in some instances, it takes a long time to get there because that supply chain sort of so supply chain are where I'm getting my goods and products so I can put them together to put together my system to give to you. It's that, everybody's working together. If I need boxes, but the box guy doesn't have the boxes, and so I'm like, okay, what am I going to do now, right? How do I do this? And so things are held up. What about the things that go into boxes? If I don't have the plastics that I need, if I don't have the coverings that I need, then that affects my business. And so, and they are depending on people to get there to get their raw material. So I think as we start off with, this is a complex problem and it affects everybody. And it's going to take all of us working together to figure out how to do it. And it's going to be innovative. How do you do that?
I can't tell you that I wasn't on a call today about supply chain and how do we be creative about making sure that engine keeps moving, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to tell you that I'm just saying this for the purpose of the fact that you brought this up, but we literally were having a call about that earlier today, and it's like, we got to figure out some creative things here because that's the biggest area that's impacted as opposed to the engineering solution, right? There's opportunities to do things virtual, right? But the supply chain, the individuals that's got to put hands on things and make that keep moving, that we literally, I like I said, I'd love to tell you that I'm just saying this for the fact that you brought it up, but that's not the case. We literally were having a meeting about that earlier today.
Yep. That is everybody's problem. Again, what COVID has done is put a mirror to us, and it's like, oh, okay, wait, we've got some things that we don't have right, and this affects every other thing. So yeah, some things that we were ignoring or thought was not important. Yeah, we are learning that that's not the case. I did get I got a question. Yeah, so I got a question that I'll answer, and this is so this one snuck in, but it's my dad, right? So dad texted a question to me, so I'm gonna read his question. I'll answer it. What approaches to develop an atmosphere for folks to be okay with not being okay, right? So that's really hitting at that vulnerability, and how do we create that atmosphere? And I think part of it. Okay, so the thing, and Justin, I'm sure you've heard me say this. I said this a lot. Is that, and this is what we're doing today is an artifact of that. I always says the work itself. The work is sort of smoke and mirrors. It's the relationships that are real for me, and the fact that we have a relationship, and it's like, okay, Charles, I need your help. I'm like, all right, what do you need? I'm there, and I can tell a story in the past where I was looking to hire 2 students out of Penn State one particular time, and I was like, Justin, after I'm sitting there talking to him, and I was like, Justin, I got 2 really smart students here, and I need you to hire them. And you were like, all right, I got them, right? And you hired them just like that, and you made a difference in those 2 students' lives, like right then, that second, and Plus, it made it look like, I knew people, right? It's like, oh, I got people. I can just call them. So you were my people, and you just made it happen. But the thing about this is how do you create that atmosphere? I think it really comes from building good relationships, right? And I think that a person that trusts Justin because Justin makes them feel comfortable, like Relly, right? So you make Relly feel comfortable. He knows he's got to work. He knows he's got to work hard, and he knows that you have high expectations of him. But he knows that if he needs some help or if he falls short or something like that, he can come to you and you will help him or find him a way to get help. Or if you sent him to someone like me, he could feel comfortable that he's going to get help without judgment. And so that's the kind of, we create that atmosphere by developing true relationships with each other, and then extending our networks and extending that relationships so that I can send them to you, you can send them to me, we can send them to Relic, we can send them to Joshua, we can send them, to different people so that they know, okay, this is a safe place for me. And also, if they see us practice what we preach and say, look, I need help. I don't know this. I'm in a pickle. I didn't do what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to do it last week. I need some help, or just anything. Just being able to be ourselves, and communicate. Just communicate, and feel free to communicate, and give ourselves, to quote one of my friends, permission to be human. Right. I think that's the thing that is the thing that gives us that atmosphere for folks to be okay with not being okay and asking
Right.
for help and sharing.
Yeah, I like the idea of being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Right. That's something that I've heard, and it's kind of stuck with me. I don't know where I've heard it initially, but it's kind of stuck with me. Being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And we do have one question. I saw you saw that it came up. I have to make sure I say this. Joshua, the award-winning North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University student, has a question. So I have to give, I got to give my A&T a shout out. I can't do that. But Josh's question is, you can put that back down, right? It's all about the Aggie pride. Should internet begin to transition to a utility and localities start offer free internet like in Chattanooga? I think that's a great question. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, I'm going. So I'm going to shout out A&T, right? I'll shout out A&T and the HBCUs out there. Like, I have connections there, so shout out to A&T, and I think that's a great question, and one that I hadn't thought of, but actually, I think that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea.
Universal internet. I mean,
Yeah,
at this point in time, understand that would take away a commodity of sale, but without internet, can you really function anymore, right? There's so much things that you will lose if you don't have internet access. Can't work, can't go to school, can't do your bills, a number of things. So maybe that is a valid point. So I don't see any additional questions. We've got about another minute or so. Want to
yep.
give you an opportunity if there was a couple other points, things that you wanted to kind of discuss. Give you the floor, and if there's anything on your mind, CJB, that you'd like to bring up directly, the floor is absolutely yours.
So you're in trouble now. But wait, I was. So before I go, I had one other question that I'll read, and then I'll answer
Sure.
that. Which was, how do we help those that don't realize they are not on the not knowing side of the digital divide? So, like, I don't know, I'm not that I don't have all that. And how do we help them get exposed to technology and development of programs for access? So I think that's a good question, right? Because how many times, Justin, we've been in meetings where it's like, I don't know what I don't know, right? That's sort of a blind spot for me. But I think that, so it's an interesting question, and I think I'm going to address it this way. I think that it's incumbent upon all of us to help people understand what the realm of the possible is, right? And that realm of the possible is most times things that we can't see. It's broader than just 5 minutes in front of our face. It's much longer road than that. It's a much longer impact than that. So I think it's incumbent on us to let folks know sort of what's possible, what's happening, what they can do, what the future holds. We're in this R&D space, so part of my job every day is understanding and trying to figure out what technologies should we invest in today that's going to be useful tomorrow. Also, what function of technology do we have today that could perform a same function, but in a different way tomorrow, right? A twist on a separate, the same topic. So I think it's incumbent upon us. I'm going to hit this back on this just communication. It's just to talk, right? So, like we're doing today, you're providing a platform where people are listening in and getting ideas and thinking of ideas on their own. Share those ideas. Go speak at where you can at schools, universities, amongst your friends. All of that. It doesn't have to be a big thing, but just talk amongst your peer group, your friends, your contacts. Find ways in which you can dedicate some time to help share things that it's things that you and I know that are everyday that aren't every day for everybody. So that's why we do things like this to help share that information. So I think for everyone that's listening, it's just to communicate what's happening, what's going on. What do you read? This is what I'm reading. What are you reading? What do you see? This is where I get my information. Where do you get yours? How's it helped you? I think it's things like that that we help each other do that. Also, just not, again, be afraid to show your vulnerability of not knowing or not knowing how to do something or falling short, right? We say, what's that? The quote was that Ron Isley. There are times where I fall short of what I say I'm all about, right? Sometimes you just fall short, and so you got to admit that and keep going. So anyway, so you know what kind of music I listen to. But anyway, so that's my thing. And I think really to close out, if there are no other questions that I see, I think one, I just want to thank you and congratulate you, let you know how proud I am of you and what you're doing. You've always been and will be just a really good person, right? Just from day one. Justin is just a great person. You care about people. That shows in what you do every day. And this foundation is just another extension of how you are doing your best to help humanity. And I'm really humbled that you asked me to come on and share my thoughts, so I can also help as well. So I'm very thankful and humbled by that. Again, I think that there are some links in the comment window that folks should go to. Digital divide is a real issue and problem, but I think the bigger problem and the bigger thing to address is the impact, and that impact is the impact that we have on each other, and the impact that we can have on the United States with respect to technology, what gets developed, how do we help our people, how do we help solve problems in communities that need our help. And I think the way we help one is we provide people the tools to help them do it. Here are the tools to help you, and the people who are dealing with the problem and are looking for that solution, we give them the tools and we sit back and help them where they say they need help.
I appreciate your comments. I appreciate you being available, and see, that's what I'm talking about. I got another Aggie giving some great session. Thank you. Yes, Dean. Thank you for making sure you're doing a call out there. And my Aggies, they come out. They come out. But thank you for joining us. I like I said, I appreciate you being able to do that, speaking with the organization, speaking out to individuals. The one thing I'll say is that you've always been somebody that I knew I could go have a conversation. And to your point, I send people your direction all the time, right? Just like you send them my way, I send them your way, because we have that level of trust that by giving those individuals that contact, that person is going to help, right? So I appreciate you doing that. For everybody on the call, I thank you again for your time. Make sure you go out and donate. That's always the most important thing here. So that way, we're able to give out the laptops, and we can continuously give the scholarships to the students. The next session that we have for the Cloud Family Foundation, the CFF Live, that's going to be on September 21st at 6:30. So look out for that. Again, CJB, thank you again for your time, and hopefully you have a great rest of your vacation out there out west.
All right, man. My pleasure. And take care, Justin.
Have a good one.